Welcome to the Millennial Podcast. It's Jeff. I'm here at the diner with Phil as usual, and today we're joined by absolutely no one.
Absolutely no one. We're flying solo this year. I guess we can say that we're flying solo. This just we count as
We're
one.
we're flying duo.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
like that better. That's better.
yeah, we're Han Solo, we're Chewbacca, we're in the cockpit here. Um, we're here solo because, well, frankly, you know, 2023 is coming to an end. Uh, by the time this podcast comes out, probably the night that this podcast comes out, will be the farewell, the swan song of 2023. And we just wanted to, because we have a podcast and we can do this now, talk about our year in enjoying music. We spent so much time this year having friends come on and talk passionately about some of their favorite albums of all time. Um, a lot of the albums that have come out in the last 20 to 30 years, and we just haven't really had a chance to celebrate the year we just went through. And it was a great year for music, especially music that started in the scene that we know and love. What do you think, though? Have you enjoyed this year of music?
One, I just want to enjoy the fact that we actually did this show this year. Let's start with that. And, like the fact that we even did this show is even more amazing. Cause do we just for folks? I don't think we ever told you how this came about. Jeff and I were texting and having a conversation about what Alkaline Trio album was better than the other. That's how this whole thing got started.
Yeah, I just asked you to rank all the albums.
All the albums, and I was like, I'll get back to you, and then I did, and then we found actually we had a lot of similarities in them. But yeah, that's how this whole thing goes. That's the secret behind it. As far as music goes, it has been a great year, I think, for music in a lot of different areas, a lot of different scenes. I think actually there's been a big resurgence in emo.
Mm-hmm.
No longer kind of like the joke, but actually like kind of getting to be coming back again for the third time or whatever wave we're on.
Well, yeah, I think you're
go
right. I think that's been happening the last few years, probably in the last decade. I feel like there's been an evolution of this, like, it became this nostalgia thing, and then it
Mm-hmm.
became kind of like these new waves, and there's new bands, and then I feel like that spirit has kind of also found its way into pop punk and hardcore scenes, where you're just getting bands which, you know, we both read this book, Where Are Your Boys Tonight by Chris Payne, The Oral History of Emo's Mainstream Explosion, 99-2008. And a lot of what I've been seeing, I feel like, in some of these newer bands, it reminds me of that time where
Yeah.
the bands were just kind of rising to the top, and they were presenting something a little different than we were used to, and crossing over to new fans. Oh,
100%.
sorry, Flo. You've been standing there this whole time.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. Oh my. Oh, she just broke her pencil in half. Fury. How are you gonna take our order, Flo?
Well, it's not very complicated, so she might be able to remember it.
All right. Well, yeah.
What are you gonna get today?
Let's keep it simple for Flo today. I'm just gonna get some a plate of French fries, side of pickles, and a coffee with oat milk. Hot coffee with oat milk.
Good choice. It is winter time after all. I think I will have rye toast with a little bit of butter and a black coffee. That sounds good. Let's do that.
That was Phil's 2023 order. We'll have to see in 2024 if he diverges from the path or not. Stay
Yes.
tuned, I guess.
Stay tuned. Season 2 is coming this springtime. We'll see what happens. Jeff, this was a really great year for music, and I think there was a product of the pandemic is that folks started to go out again and wanted to go see shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely felt that way. It felt like a lot of the concerts and shows I went to this year, it felt like the first time since everything shut down in March 2020 that everything was like fully back. Like, it started last year, I felt like, but this year it just felt like, oh, there's no one's even questioning it. They're just going to shows again. And
Yeah.
and with that, I always found that I think what happened, and I look at this in the hardcore scene that like I kind of wasn't paying attention to, but then this post pandemic hardcore scene kind of exploded, and I think it's kind of a similar thing. I think there was just this moment where like no one could do anything, and then all of a sudden the pandemic's over and these like new young bands are like seizing the day basically.
Right. How many shows did you go to this year?
Oh, I never keep count, Phil, but it was a lot. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it seemed like a big show year for you.
I don't know. I was just personally, I was just having a year of like a lot of changes happening, a lot of things ending, a lot of new beginnings, all these things, new chapters, and I feel like when there's a lot of change going on, I like to you know kind of lean on what comforts me, and
Mm.
one of the things that comforts me most is going to see my favorite bands, and with everybody fully touring again, it felt like I had an opportunity to see so many of my all-time favorite bands this year, which was funny to me too because we would cover bands on this podcast, and it'd be like, oh, I haven't listened to Less Than Jake in so long, and then lo and
Right.
behold, a month or two later, they're doing a tour on the 20th anniversary tour on Hello Rock You, the very album that we covered. So I've spent time getting familiar with that album and diving deep into it, and then I got to go see it play live. So like things like that kept happening, which was really cool.
That is really cool. That did happen a couple of times where you're like, I'm trying to think of some other time. You were like, oh yeah, and I'm already gonna go see them. Or like, oh, well, it happened with Thrice. We talked about Thrice. You saw Thrice again. I think they were playing all of ours in the ambulance. Or
They
that's next year.
were. In
They
fact,
were,
in
yeah,
fact, our show we had Michael Bear on, our old friend Michael Bear, who's a big
yeah.
Thrice fan. He was one of the people who was like, "Hey, have you seen one of Norby, also another person we had
Mm.
on our podcast, who's, as we said in that episode, always the guy who's telling us about new bands." But both of them were like, "Hey, have you seen Gel yet?" And I was like, "I haven't." And then I made sure I saw Gel, and I'm like, "Well, I'm glad I saw that because that was awesome."
It was a big year for shows.
Phil, how many shows did you go to this year?
Oh, that's a really hard one. I got to think about that. Realistically, I went to two. Where it was an actual true show. I went and saw AJR with
Mm-hmm.
with my wife and my son. It was my son's first concert, which was
Oh,
super
cool.
cool. It was actually it was a twofer with the Philadelphia Phillies. Strange, I know. So we drove all the way from New Hampshire to Philadelphia to watch the Philadelphia Phillies play against the Los Angeles Dodgers in a game. And then after the game, AJR was going to play on the field, and we had to buy tickets in advance, and we actually get to go on the field after the game. I got to bring my son and with me, and so it was his first show. I was literally maybe 12 feet away from the band. It was really cool to see them. It's AJR's executive producer Megan's favorite band of all time. It's my son Weston's favorite band of all time, and so we got to see that, which was super cool. And it was great to have that experience with him to actually his first actual show I was there for. So that was really cool. And then the other show we went to was the Dropkick Murphys here in New Hampshire. It was Megan and myself went to that one, which was the first time in a long time I felt old at a show because I was sitting down like the most people there. And
What
I remember being like, I feel like the pitch should be bigger. And like the interrupters were there, so I got to see the interrupters play, which was a lot of fun. And Amy Interrupter was like, "Come on, guys, make a really big circle pit," and nobody did that. It was
and we're like, no, my feet hurt.
yeah, it was more like I'm gonna injure myself watching drop kicks, not so much the interrupters. Great live show though, the interrupters. I was pretty impressed with that. But other than that, I've been doing a lot of local emo nights,
Oh, cool.
which is a lot of fun because I am one of the elder emos there, and I know a lot of the songs, and it always makes me happy to see these younger bands play these songs that I'm like, I've been singing this song for 20 fucking years, and here you are like thinking it's new. I don't know. I love every second of it. So with that in mind, I want to give a couple shout outs to three bands that I really fell into in the local scene. They're New Hampshire, they're New England. So New Hampshire, Wayne's and Maine. And I think this other one they're from New Hampshire was. So, but that is Empty Halls out of New Hampshire. These are all available on Spotify. Empty Halls, Turner out of Portland, Maine. That band kicks ass. Like it's crazy how good they are. Empty Halls, astonishingly good. And then Everway is another band out of New Hampshire, I believe out of New Hampshire, who actually I recently played Huntington, New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they go where the emo night takes them, I guess. Those three bands, killer bands. If they're in your area, if you catch them on Spotify, Empty Halls, Turner, and Everway. Great
What would
bands.
you describe their sounds?
So Empty Halls is very post-hardcore, like
Hmm.
Thursday. Like if you were into Thursday or Yeah, I guess Thursday would be their post-hardcore would be Empty Halls. Turner would be, oh man, Turner's kind of hard to go with. There, I'd probably put them more in the Under Oath bucket.
Hmm.
Very loud, very big. I forget the front singer's name, but man, can he scream! And then Everway is like a real emo band, real emo band. Very polished sound, and I actually have their LP on vinyl, a nice cool little blue vinyl. Very polished sounding. I would say more very emo-y. Um, I take a lot of like Take It Back Sunday, but make it but because they usually a lot of times they'll do the live show at least they have two singers and they do really well with that. Like their Everway's cover of Make Damn Sure, Chef's Kiss, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
Turner did an amazing version of Helena by MCR. I'm trying to think what stood out with I think Empty Halls. I was just amazed at how loud they can be in a smaller space. So they were killer bands. If you're in the area of New Hampshire, Maine, Mass, Empty Halls, Turner, and Everway.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
What about what about you, Jeff? Um, you said you went to a lot of shows.
I
Could you
have. Yeah.
could you think you can like narrow it down and like I don't know, perhaps give me your top 10 in a descending order and explain why?
You know what? I mean, this is off the cuff, but I mean, sure. I feel like why not? You know, I mean, all right. The top 10 live shows
Like
that Jeff went to in
Jeff went
2023.
David Letterman it. Like let's
All
go.
right.
So,
All
all
right.
right.
I'll try to give you around the time I went, but I might be wrong because time is a flat circle. And
It's a construct, man. Time does not matter. It just keeps
yeah,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we don't actually move through time. Time, you can't move through time. Nothing's moving. It's
Yeah.
just there. But our brains make us think we're moving through it, but we're not. All right. I'll give you my top 10. But before I get into my top 10, I'm just going to just give a couple of shout outs to two shows that were amazing, unbelievable. Could have been number ones in any other year,
Yeah.
but didn't even make my top 10. I went to the Bouncing Souls 10-story high tour this year. Hadn't seen the Bouncing Souls in a few years. And I went some at the Belasco here in LA, downtown. And I did something I'd never done before, which is I got the little VIP uh, pre-show acoustic set and meet and greet. So
Oh,
that was super fun. I got to meet the guys in the Bouncing Souls for the first time after 25 plus years of listening to them.
that's
Uh,
cool.
that
Yeah.
was a treat. I also have to give a shout out to the Death Cab for Cutie and Postal Service show at the Hollywood Bowl. I went. They did 3 nights in the Hollywood Bowl. I was excited. I've seen both. I saw them do the 10-year anniversary for the um, Postal Service tour. Was the first time I saw them, and I'm kind of blew my mind that I'm already at the 20-year anniversary, which means 10 years since then. But anyway, they played Translucent, which you know is my favorite Death Cab
Oh
album
yeah.
in its
There it
entirety.
is. Yep.
And in my head, I thought Death Cab was the bigger band, but they actually had Death Cab go on first.
Oh, really? So
Yeah, yeah.
Postal Service was second.
Postal Service was second, and it was the right call because Postal Service was a dance party. It was just so fun, and
Mm,
it was all millennials and elder millennials came out of the woodworks for those shows. That was really really special. All right, so my official top 10 begins. First up, I saw the band Scowl and Military Gun at this crazy awesome venue in LA. It's like in a very industrial area in downtown. There's like garbage cans of fire coming out of it on the rounds. It's a very sketchy area. It's really awesome. And inside, it's just an old warehouse they turned into basically a hardcore venue. Um, it's super sick. It's the place to see shows. It's madness. You know, the pits are crazy there. But I was not in the pit, but I stood in the back and I saw Scowl and Military Gun, both two bands I found this year, both two bands who I would consider kind of having their moment and kind of like really like rising to the top of the buzz for different reasons. So that was really cool to see that. And I don't know, I always feel like since I've seen so many of the bands I love so many times, I forget what it was like when I first started seeing bands when they were kind of like in their beginning stages, in their early moments. There's an energy difference. So
yes.
seeing these younger bands kind of like in the prime or in the beginning of their prime, there's an electricity there that I feel like is really special to see like how they affect the fans and how they are on stage. You know, it's like not this, you know, they haven't grown jaded yet, you know, they haven't slowed down yet, they haven't had their breakups yet, you know, they're in it, and that's really exciting. It's number 9.
Number 9.
California is for Lovers Fest. This was a small festival put on by the band Hawthorne Heights.
Hawthorne Heights.
They
Yep.
did it all over the country. They had like I think like 6 different places over the country, and it was like Lovers Fest. So it would be like Boston for lovers or whatever it would be. This was California for Lovers. It was in Orange County. Former guest on the pod, Michael Bear, came out because Thrice was playing it, and I Thursday was playing it, and Touche Amore was playing it, and so many other bands. Alkaline Trio was playing it, and I was like, Michael Bear, there's a lot of bands here. You like, do you want to go to this? And he said, let me get a ticket, and he did, and he flew out, and we went. And so for me, that was just a wonderful day of seeing. It was a really small festival, which made it really nice. It was easy to get around. The 2 stages, back and forth, and also going with Michael Bear was for me. This is someone I used to go back way back in the day going to shows with. So it was nice to have that experience again here in 2023. Number 8, actually, the official Thrice, the Artist in the Ambulance 20th anniversary show. I saw at the Wiltern, LA. Again, we had done the podcast on this, and I didn't even realize they were touring it. And I was like, oh, I have to go see that. And holy hell, was it awesome. They sound so tight.
I heard that. I have heard that. Yes.
And those songs, they're 20 years old. They could have been written yesterday. They are so fresh. It was awesome. And they did the thing I really love when a band does like a 20th anniversary or anniversary show. They played the whole album in its entirety, and then they stuck around and played a bunch of other songs too.
Well, I appreciate that. It's always nice.
So they played Deadbolt. Yes, they did. Oh, yes, they did.
Deadbolt. Deadbolt, man. That reminds me of when seeing them play for the first time, and I remember hearing Deadbolt, and I was like, "This is the most amazing song ever to hear live." I was trying to think. It's funny when you brought up Berrigan. I don't think we talked about it, but do you remember the time we were driving somewhere in the car, and Bear and I, as per usual, got into a fight over something. I don't remember what it was, and neither one, like, we both basically harumphed each other into like being silent, and we go about 30 seconds in the car. 30 seconds in the car, and it's just silent. And you you put on "Freakish" by Saves the Day, when it gets to the part about the about only thing I know is awkward silence, and the three of us just start laughing. Do you remember that at all? Or is that just me?
Was that our road trip to Hartford to see Jimmy Eat World?
I think it might have been. I don't remember
Yeah.
where we were going. I just remember that and just laughing my ass off at the very awareness of lyrics you were
Awkward silence. Yeah. That's a great album, Say What You Are. We should cover that in season 2.
That is a good yes.
I'll put a note down for that.
Anyway,
number 7.
Number 7.
Sometimes I like to check off legacy bands, like all-time greats that you should see at least once.
I've seen Madonna. I saw Madonna just for that very reason.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta do. I've done it before in the past. I did that for Paul Simon a few years back when his last tour. Like again, like I should see these old timers while they're still around with us playing music. Joe, also a guest on our podcast, he dared bring the Smashing Pumpkins into our emo punk podcast. It's fine. We've forgiven him. We went to go see Kiss at the Hollywood Bowl. Because why not? Why not experience Kiss in live in person?
And you know what? And they're in full makeup, right? It's the full show. Yeah, it's the full
makeup.
Yeah.
This is the end of the road tour, supposedly.
Didn't they say that like 5 tours ago?
They did, but then their last stop at Madison Square Garden, they unveiled these CGI avatars of Kiss so that Kiss can keep rocking for all time. So the Kiss hologram avatars are coming to a concert venue near you. But yeah, it was everything I wanted a Kiss concert to be. Gene Simmons did the tongue out. He did blood pouring from his mouth. He ate fire. Paul Stanley, before he played Love Gun, was on like a rope and like flew across the venue to like a medium stage halfway up in the crowd and sang Love Gun from there. It was wild. There was fire. It was everything you wanted from Kiss. And then I think my favorite part was I didn't see as many adults dressed as Kiss as I thought, but there were a lot of kids dressed as Kiss, and I thought that was awesome. So that was number 7.
Gene Simmons has a way to just appear and think. Like he's in an episode of Castle. I love Castle because I love Nathan Fillion. He was in an episode of Castle, which was very weird. And also It's one of my all-time favorite ridiculous movies from the '80s, Runaway.
Wow.
Tom Selleck. It's a bullet that just automatically you put someone's name on it basically, and the bullet just goes and finds it. It's horrible, terrible movie.
Huh. My first summer in Los Angeles, I got a part-time job at a Borders Books in Westwood over by UCLA. And
Yeah.
while I was working there, Gene Simmons had a book come out and he was doing a signing. And I
Oh,
was tasked with walking him from the back room to the signing table. Uh, so that was my brush with Gene
is he
Simmons.
is he tall?
I mean, I normal height.
No, height. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
He gives. Oh, as the younger kids now say, he gives tall.
he gets tall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's probably
he
it's to
definitely had
make
main character energy.
okay. Yeah, I'm sure he's the main character of every story ever. Yeah.
Uh, all
What we
right,
leave off? Number six.
number 6. We're staying at the Hollywood Bowl. We're staying again with legacy great bands of all time. Um, I saw The Cure. They
Oh,
played 3 nights of the bowl. I liked them so much the first night. I went to another night. Again, also we covered a Cure album on this year, so it was just great to see them live. They sound incredible. Like his voice is as it was 30, 40 years ago. Nothing's changed. It's
that's
gorgeous.
amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. That's
They put
awesome.
on an amazing show. Number 5, Long Island's own Taking Back Sunday. Put out an album late this year called 152. Um, they did a release. They did a couple of like release parties. They did one in LA and they did one in New York. I was very lucky to get tickets to the one in LA, uh, in the town called Highland Park at this place called the Lodge Room. Very small room. It's one of the smallest rooms I've probably seen Taking Back Sunday since they started. Um, they also had there's a place called Burger Lords on the first floor. It's a vegan burger place, and they had
Okay.
their own sandwich there, their own Taking Back Sunday sandwich. That was like a tofu situation. It was really great. Um, the show was really special. It was just one of those things where they played the entire new album in its entirety. That's a weird
Okay.
sentence. They played the album in its entirety.
There you go.
Don't need all those entires in there.
Yeah.
Which was exciting because like it felt like they seemed nervous about it because I think that if you listen to that album and you were like you're expecting Taking Back Sunday from 21 years ago, that's not what you're getting. You're getting, grown-ups writing kind of like a rock album that's like about them today. And you know, hearing it live really was like a special way to experience it, to get into it. And then they
Okay.
also did the fun thing where they finished up, they left for 5 minutes, they came out and they did like a best of set of some of their all their bangers. So you got everything from that, and it was just a really great way to see them. And then, as luck would have it, less than a week later, I was on Long Island visiting my dad, and they were doing an in-store signing at Looney Tunes, the great record store on Long Island, and an acoustic set. So I'm like, well, I might as well do that too. So I completed a very nice Taking Back Sunday week, coast to coast.
That's cool. You did. You got bi-coastal.
Bi-coastal. All right, number 4. You'll probably be surprised that this is only at number 4. I went to When We Were Young Fest this year.
I find that very odd that it's number 4, but okay, moving on. Keep explaining me why.
It's there. I mean, it was just probably because it was the most exhausting day I've had ever. I mean, I know that the joke is like when we were young and they're being nostalgic and stuff, but it's like I'm like, why? How about while we were young? While we are young, Fest, Phil.
Yeah.
Why can we
I've
call
had
it that?
Yeah, why couldn't they have had that? Well, that was called that was that was a Warp Tour.
Yeah. I also put this in here, and I left off Coachella, but I did go to Coachella for the first time ever,
Mm.
which was important because I see Blink-182 kind of their return with Tom back in the band. Knocked Loose played that as well. Boy Genius, Bjork, Blackpink, lots of amazing bands. But I decided to put When We Were Young as the big fest on here because I mean I saw Movie Life, I saw Tiger's Jaw, I saw Finch, I saw so many bands, so many bands. You look at that list. I took it to heart that I was going to see as many bands as possible. From the Ataris to Saves the Day. I saw Thrice for the third time, this year, and the headliners were Blink-182 and Green Day.
Right.
Which Blink-182's new album had just come out. It was really special. I also got to see Something Corporate had their big reunion, and I went to the reunion show at the House of Blues the night before the festival, at
Yeah.
the fabulous Mandalay Bay Casino. And that was really exciting to see something corporate again back at it and sounding just like they did 20 years ago. It was really cool. So that whole experience was amazing. Um, the Green Day Blink thing was blew my mind because I remember going in 2002 to the
To the
Pop
Green
Disaster
Green Day.
tour,
Yeah. Right.
and I remember at the time Blink was like the big band, and this was pre-American Idiot Green Day.
Right. This is where Green Day had gone down a little bit in flavor because they didn't put out, there wasn't Dookie. They kept trying to do a Dookie, but just it was not there.
Right. And look, Warning's one of my favorite Green Day albums.
I actually think the things in between Dookie
Hmm.
and American Idiot is actually some of their best work. I'm a huge Insomniac fan. I think Nimrod's awesome. I think Warning's a great transitional album for them. It's just, there's some really great stuff. I think post American Idiot hasn't been as good as pre American Idiot, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. They have Saviors coming out next year, so maybe
And it sounds, for what I've heard of it so far, sounds pretty good.
yeah. But I remember in 2002, Green Day kind of was, I think, had a chip on their shoulder because they were opening for Blink. And I
Yeah.
remember I went to I went to Madison Square Garden and Jones Beach. And both nights I felt like Green Day just like went out there and put on the most ferocious show I ever saw them do. Like they were clearly like, I remember at one point Billy Joe yells, "I'm the king of fucking punk rock," and
So,
like it felt like that's what they were doing. They were like, "Let us show you how it's done."
yeah.
And you're like, your hair's blown back. You're like, "Whoa!" And then Blink 22 came on,
Right.
which was great, but it was the take off your pants and jacket era. Um, but this time I was like, well, where am I? Where's Jeff 21 years later? Where does it sit in the pecking order? And I have to say, again, by the time Green Day came on, I was so tired from the whole day of being out in the desert sun in Vegas. But
It's exhausting in Vegas. It's like
it is.
deceptively exhausting out in Vegas. It is.
It is. It is. I don't know. The Blink show felt more special, maybe because it was the Tom return year.
Probably because Tom's back. Yeah.
Yeah. It just had a little bit more of an emotional feeling. And then for Green Day, for me, I I saw them a couple years ago at the Hella Mega Tour with Fall Out Boy and Weezer,
Uh,
and my thing was I felt like the set was very similar, and I'm like they seem to be doing a lot of the same things every time I see them. Where not that Blink isn't like Blink is probably more Blink now than they were even decades ago with their jokes and they're just having fun up there. But it was interesting. It was kind of like I had to like check in because like for me it's always been Green Day kind of like kicked the door open for me,
right.
but Blink was the first band that I was like, oh, the door is open. I found my band.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always been kind of this thing. Who's my like most influential band? But I think I left there thinking Blink was. So that was a big learning experience for me.
Hmm.
But yeah, I got to see Blink 3 times this year. Coachella, this, and one of their own shows with Turnstile opening. So
Ooh.
I fully celebrated the return of Tom DeLonge into the Blink as they are back to how they're supposed to be. Number 3, 20th anniversary year. We talk about it all the time. 2023 was a huge year. We could list all the albums that came out this year that had 20th anniversaries this year. One of the most important was "Sing the Sorrow" by AFI.
AFI. I was wondering whether I actually I'm now really want to know what's 2 and 1 if this was 3. Okay.
So you should be able to do the math. What the top 2 are. Um,
Yeah.
One night only at the Fabulous Forum in Los Angeles, AFI declined to do a full tour of "Sing the Sorrow."
Mm,
I think there's many reasons for that. I imagine one, they don't want to be a nostalgia band. They never have been. They
right.
are a band that reinvents themselves every album. But they are aware that this was their major label debut. This was the thing that really blew them up, put them up on the map. I think it's one of their most accomplished albums, just because they were building toward for albums. We talked about this in the AFI episode. Album after album, they were building towards this sound.
Right.
And also, I think it's a lot of screaming. And I don't know if Davey can scream like he did back then, but I'll tell you what, they saved it all for one show. It it sounded unbelievable. Like
See,
it was spot on, perfect.
I feel like AFI is one of those bands. I didn't say I really put it together then when we did the show versus this one, but um, they don't like to look back, right? I think they are
Yeah,
more of like, what am I doing right now? And it's very akin to how Husker Du and like Sonic Youth were bands very loud. but really only were like, hey, check out the new material. They cared a lot about what they were working on, not that what they have been doing. So
No,
so
absolutely.
similar in that regard.
No, I mean they were phenomenal, and I mean they didn't. I mean they had a full. There was a visual component to the
Mm.
screens and stuff. I mean there was light. I mean it was a full show. It was a perfectly conceived night. They had Jawbreaker open, which was
Oh,
awesome
yeah,
because
that's
like
awesome.
they grew up loving Jawbreaker, and because it was in L.A. at the Forum on a Saturday night, which was the actual 20th anniversary of the date the album came out, literally the 20th
Okay.
birthday of the album. It kind of felt like an AFI fan convention because
Yeah,
you had
okay.
people coming from all over the country and the world to go to this show.
Well, because it's only one, it made it's a little different than like doing a tour where you're every night you're gonna do the album and then reserved and a couple of like I'm looking at the race and doing Arts and Ambulance. I wonder if it gets tired for bands to do the same set every night for a tour, and then you're because I saw Mike M do the Black Parade. That was actually the first show of the tour, and like they were very excited all that. But I remember hearing that toward the end of the Black Parade, Gerard was very done doing the Black Parade because you have to do the sequence and you can't you don't change it up, but then you could have some fun with the extra songs. I just wonder if there's like I don't know, you get kind of tired of that. But leaving the one show for AFI and everybody comes to the win. To me, I think that makes it very special and a great. And I'm very happy for you. You got to see that.
Yeah, no, I it was phenomenal, and I got to go with my brother-in-law Dan, who did our AFI episode. It was the first time
That's right.
we saw AFI together. My sister was there. Friends old and new were all there. It was fantastic. It's funny you bring up the My Chemical Romance thing
Oh,
because
why is that?
well, I'll get to why. There's many reasons, but the Black Parade when it came out, they did the full tour of the Black Parade. Then they did
Yeah,
a tour called The Black Parade is Dead because the Black Parade
love it.
was over because they were
Over.
done with it. Pretty sure they said they would never play the Black Parade's entirety again. That if you missed it, you missed it. Well, when we were young, announced their
JK.
2024 show, which is going to be again all those bands back together again for this crazy concert experience, festival experience. But they're having out bands do albums, and Mike Chem will be doing Black Parade in 2024
I
at
just I just don't know if they're gonna go full costume in 90-degree heat in the middle of a fucking desert. I
I
just
don't know. I don't know if they would do full costume. I feel like that would be the difference. Like I wouldn't expect them to do full costume.
no. I was just thinking to myself, would I expect full costume? I don't think I would because honestly, I feel like the band would pass out up there. It's got to be ridiculously hot in there.
Well,
I
did you
just
see what you saw what they did last year when they did When We Were Young? Um, they
what?
went out dressed as Revenge era My Chemical Romance,
Oh,
but they
that's
had
hilarious.
old man makeup on and like prosthetics.
That's hilarious. No, I didn't realize they had done that. That's amazing. Okay, I love this. I love this band even more.
Yeah, they're always so.
Just anyway. All right.
That being said, my number two and any other year would be number one because I got to see my favorite band, My Chemical Romance, in Japan.
In Japan.
Not why I went to Japan, just so happened that I booked a trip to Japan and noticed that My Chemical Romance was also going to be in the area and actually in Tokyo the same time I was. So I went to this. It's called
I,
Punk Spring was the name of the festival. It was a small festival in this city called Chiba outside of Tokyo, which I found my way out over there. And I was a couple days into being in Tokyo, and I was starting to feel exhausted and overwhelmed because Tokyo has a lot of people, and I mean, it was great, but I was definitely kind of like, ooh, I need a day where I like feel good in my skin. And showing up that show and just seeing a bunch of punk and emo people in Japan from all over the world congregating there, it was awesome. Uh, it was amazing to see them finish up this big reunion tour. They played some of my favorite deep cuts like Boy Division and It's Not a Fashion Statement, It's a Death Wish. And on top of that, the openers were Bad Religion, which was incredible to see them. And
mm-hmm.
I got Phil this really cool Japanese exclusive
I
Bad
did.
Religion shirt.
Most amazing shirt I own. Honest, I'm not lying.
Simple Plan played, and the Interrupters played, and
Oh
some
yeah.
Japanese bands played. I mean, it was an amazing experience, and I just to have that experience of seeing Mike Chem now in Japan is just there's so many Mike Chem shows are my favorite of all time, but this one is up there as well. Number
So
one.
what's number one? Where do we go from this?
Well, number one's a tie
Oh,
because I went to this concert twice.
I was like, what is gonna tie this one? Oh, it's the two shows.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I saw Taylor Swift for the first time ever this year. Um,
Liked it
uh,
so much you went again.
what liked it so much? Yeah, I went to Eras Tour night one on St. Patrick's Day in Glendale, Arizona.
Arizona, that's
Um,
right.
the whole reason why I ended up there, mostly because tickets were so hard to get, and there was a gamble, like maybe it'd be easier to get for Arizona. It doesn't matter. I was up there, um, and I got to experience the Eras Tour before anybody posted anything on TikTok, before anybody knew what the show was going to be.
Right.
No one had any idea what she was doing. Like, what does that mean, Eras Tour? And what we found out, it meant over 3 hours and more songs than you can even imagine, and costume changes and spectacle, and also this gift she has as a performer, where no matter how many people, 80,000 people, whatever you're with, it feels like she's just talking to you the whole time.
Mm.
It's incredible. Yeah.
So where was the second show? It was Arizona. What was the second show?
Then then after that happened, I was like, well, I got to get a ticket for this LA show because she's playing 5 nights at SoFi
Yeah,
in
okay.
LA. So I was able to get a ticket to one of the nights there, which happened to be one of the nights she recorded for the film.
The film,
So
okay.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Now, if I understand correctly, it was the same set list every night, except for the last song. That's what varied. And she never and
last two songs.
last two songs. Okay, the last two songs. And she never did the same two songs. Am I right? The whole tour?
Until the first 3 nights in LA. And then it seemed
Ah,
like she kind of picked some of her favorites
okay.
for the film. So yeah,
Ah,
she would do this, she would do every album in its whole own piece, which each one could have been its own concert. That's where like the level was at. And
hmm,
then she would end the night, she called it her acoustic portion of the night, and she'd do one on acoustic guitar and one on just piano.
okay.
And then she would change that up. Yeah. So that became kind of like
So what did you
the
see? What did you see at the two shows? Do you remember?
yeah, I saw Tim McGraw, one of her first ever hits ever.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and Mirrorball was the
Okay.
first one. And then it was oh my god, I'm blanking on it. Our Song was one that she had repeated.
Okay.
And then off 1989, oh my god, I'm like blanking on the name. I always blank.
I, I
But terrible.
sometimes titles are hard to recall.
I've always had This Love. I don't
Ah,
know why
okay.
that title, it never sticks in my head. So she did that one as well. So that was part of it. And also I got two different openers. The in Arizona, I had Paramore opening,
Oh man, yeah, okay.
which was incredible, and also incredible because I'm like, oh, Haley Williams can command a football stadium. You know, like you're opening for Taylor Swift and everybody's eating on the palm of your hand.
Yeah,
Hearing Misery Business in a football stadium with everyone singing along was
yeah.
unbelievable.
That is definitely Paramore would be a real treat to see. Haley, I've watched concert footage of her. I mean, she's a star. She is. She's
Yeah.
a star. She's a star.
Anyway, so that is my year of concerts. Uh, the only time a My Chemical Romance show would come in number two is because I was that blown away by finally seeing Taylor Swift after years of wanting to. I actually had tickets to the Lover Fest that was supposed to happen in 2020. She was supposed to open the SoFi football stadium in LA. She was supposed to be the first event
Um,
there, but then something happened in 2020 and everything went away. So
yeah,
here we
it's
are.
now it's good. It's cool. I'm glad you got to scratch Taylor Swift off your list of people you wanted to see. I actually got to do that myself this year. Not in concert form though. I got to go to a spoken word event with Henry Rollins
Oh,
of Black Flag and Henry Rollins
yeah.
band fame. Yeah, and I that was they got to scratch that off my list. It was nice to good to see you again, tour or something like that. He's always been a spoken word guy for me, and I've enjoyed his books. I've always read a lot of his books. Um, and I'm a big fan of Black Flag and him in general. So it was really great to see him. Let me tell you this. So you said Taylor Swift did it was a 3 hour show, costumes and all this. Henry Rollins stood in the same spot for 2.5 hours. Did not stop talking the entire time. Never once. There was no breath, like there was no big pause. He never got a glass of water. He just stood there for 2.5, and it was the most amazing. And I was like watching him go, and it was so much fun just to hear him talk about everything about living in LA. He talked about his story about the guy who tried to break into his house in LA, which was hilarious and terrifying at the same time. Uh, but yeah, I got to see Henry Rollins. I was very excited.
That's awesome.
Very excited.
Where did he do the spoken word?
In my town.
Oh, look at that.
He came all the way to New Hampshire to do it here. And yeah, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It was so cool. I didn't have to go. I literally had to go mere 3 minutes down the road to go see Henry Rollins play.
Fantastic. And he didn't drop up any angry letters to you at all?
No, not this
No.
time. No, no. This if anything, I'd write angry letters to him. Be like play Black Flag up there. No, just kidding. Be yourself. I like Henry being Henry. But yeah,
Well,
I I got to scratch that off my list. Yeah.
that's huge. I mean, we did it. We had a year of music. We
Big
got
year.
out. We saw some of our favorite musicians, whether they were singing the concert of a lifetime or they were doing spoken word storytelling and poetry that he does. Fantastic. Uh, but what we're really here to do as we scarf down our final diner meal of
Mm,
2023, I think we should play some music.
let's do that.
You
What?
know, I think that what I like to do at the end of the year is I'm not necessarily one. I used to be like, what's my favorite album of the year? What's my favorite movie of the year? As I've grown up more, I've come to appreciate that there's no number one. There's just a bunch that are really important, and that is no different this year. So I'd love to hear some of the albums you love this year, and I'll tell you some of the albums I loved, and then maybe we can play songs off some of those albums.
Okay. I'm gonna go. So some of the albums that came out. I'm gonna start with just albums in general.
Okay.
Because I could also do new albums by old bands, but for the moment, I'm gonna go with one of my top 5 albums for the year is "Living Proof" by Drain.
Mm-hmm.
Off Epitaph. These guys are an amazing album, amazing band. So much fun to watch on a lot of their concert footage. The album really threw me off, and this is the one I want to play because they did this really. So like they're a hardcore band, right?
Yep.
And then they do this really awesome out of nowhere cover of the Descendants of Good Things.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and it's a really usually they're kind of like screaming the entire time, but no, it's a really straightforward cover, and I remember listening to it, and I was like, what is this doing here all of a sudden? It's an amazing track, but yeah, they cover good things.
They're a Santa Cruz band, I believe, is
That
their yeah, and they have a
yes,
kind of a beach vibe hardcore band.
there's a very Southern California like yeah, bro, let's go get some like avocados and go surfing kind of feel to it, but it I'm here for it. So yeah, live and their cover is amazing. The cover of the Living Proof album is if you've seen it, it's awesome. Love Drain. That was one of my favorite albums of the year.
All right. Well, do you want to play anything off that?
Yeah, can we ooh, let's see. That is a very good. You know what? I'm just gonna go with let's I do that's they do good things. It doesn't have really analogous of the band themselves. So I'm gonna click it and we're gonna do FTS KYS.
All right. Here is, Phil, say it again,
FTS KYS.
by Drain. All right.
Yeah, I forget the acronym, but the KYS is kill yourself, but it's about finding the thing inside of you hate and to get rid of it.
Get rid of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That's
very
that's the yeah,
positive
yeah.
spin on it. Yeah.
It is. It's all about finding the thing that's inside of you that is negative and kill it.
Ugh, I love that. And that song rocks. All right. On that note, so I got my breakdown is I got a couple newer bands who had albums come out who I never really listened to before, and now they're up following their career going forward. So why don't we stay in Santa Cruz?
Okay.
And I mentioned seeing their show, my list of my favorite shows. The band Scowl put out an EP this year called Psychic Dance Routine. Came out April 7th, 2023. They had an album, 2021 was their first album. They've been burning up the charts on the hardcore scene. But Psychic Dance Routine, I feel like, is as Brian Norby once taught me, EPs are a chance to kind of like show the direction you're going to be going in next.
Right.
And what what they do on this, they have this ferocious hardcore style music, but then their singer, screamer, can also she can sing like 90s alt voice style where like her voice could fit somewhere between Courtney Love and Shirley Manson of Garbage, you know?
Mm.
And there are songs in this EP where it goes from screams to that kind of 90s sound. And it's like, how come I've never heard this before?
Why haven't I heard this before? Yeah, exactly.
And on top of that, they just, they have it. Like when I saw them twice this year, and I don't know much about A&R music, but I remember seeing My Chemical Romance the first time and being like, that singer's a star.
Yeah,
This band
right.
is different than everybody else. I feel the same way about Scowl. I'm like, I know they're coming from the hardcore scene, but I'm like, this is bigger than hardcore. This band, their singer's a star. They're gonna be huge. Um, so I would love to play Opening Night off Psychic Dance Routine EP by Scowl. All right. So that is Scowl. Phil, you often have a scowl on your face.
I do. That's my what I look like. Yeah.
You're resting, you're resting scowl face.
I that's I like that rusting scalp face. So that'll be RSF. I'm in for that. No, I had to take a moment because I'm looking at my list of like what else was a good top five, an album for me that came out this year. Um it was a year of me finding some newer bands, that
Hmm.
so one of the newer bands I got into that is still relatively new. Um and they're on Hellcat. So the Armstrong's group, and that's Grade Two. Grade Two is straight punk band out of the
Hmm.
UK. Reminds me a lot of really like a real old school kind of punk, three-chord punk. If for those who maybe remember them in the Northeast, the Street Dogs, which was out of Boston, they were a band really kind of got me going. And they've dropped a new album called Grade Two, was self-titled. At least now I'm double checking it was a self-titled one. Yeah, self-titled one came out in 2023. I got excited when I saw a couple of clips on it. I was like, all right, yeah, okay, I'll try this out. I tried it out. I just love the demeanor of the band. It's fast, catchy, punk rock. Um, that's just kind of worth listening to, I think. So there's Grade Two. Grade Two self-titled album is fantastic.
What year did it come out? I'm sorry, did you
20,
say?
2023.
Oh, it did. It's new. Okay,
It,
perfect.
it was yeah, it was
Oh,
one that came
perfect.
out this year. Yeah, yeah, I love it.
All right. Anything you want to play off that?
You know what? It's just because I've always loved the title. It's called Street Rat Scalawag.
I love it. Here is Street Rat Scalawag by Grade Two. Well, Phil, that was awesome. I'm gonna stay with this new band, the new news
The new news.
for this section of our countdown, or not even a countdown, our list. Um, I saw them with Scowl. They're called Military Gun.
Oh
Uh,
boy, yeah,
this album, Life Under the Gun, I mean, everybody I tell start listening to becomes a Military Gun fan.
yeah,
They kind of have that like melodic post-hardcore meets pop punk meets I don't even know like it even goes beyond punk at times. It
yeah.
slows it down a little bit. Like I am, and their show is amazing live. They were all wearing like bulletproof vests, kind of like My Chemical Romance style, though the lead singer was, which is kind of funny.
That's funny. Yeah, okay.
But they're from LA. Um, there's so many good songs on it. I will say that they have a song called Very High, which uh is what it's about, what you
Okay.
think it's about. But it's just a really great kind of song about feeling good. And
Yeah,
when you're feeling low down, you get very high to get past that. So I don't know. I played it a lot. I would love to hear it right now. Here is Very High by Military Gun off their 2023 album, Life Under the Gun. All right, Phil, what do you got next?
um, you know, this was an album that I didn't think I'd like, and then I listened to it, and then I was like, this I don't think has a bad song on it. I dare say it's one of those rare albums. that doesn't have a skip. Although I think there is. I think I know what it is if I were to do that, but I'm gonna go with. It was also a kind of a new world for me. Because like you know what, I don't really do a lot of pop music.
Hmm.
Um, but then I heard the lead single on this one, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I was like, all right, so fine. And then Megan got into it, and then we would play it a lot. And I was like, this whole album is amazing. And then I had to go back and check out old stuff, and I was like, this whole album is. Where was I on this one? But so I'm gonna rank it in my top five albums. We're gonna do some O-Rod and
Yes.
Olivia Rodrigo and Guts. Uh, that I it, I can't say enough good things about it. It's just it takes everything I liked about the 90s female-led alternative bands. She takes all of that and it was like, all right, I'm going to use all of that, but I'm going to put more of like this like weird pop emo spin on it and come up with this really amazing 12 track album. And it's amazing, that album. I just it kills me with that one. So I would like, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I will second this. Guts is in my top list this year as well.
Guts is amazing.
Yeah,
Guts
it's
is
so
amazing.
good. But I'm very curious what song you're gonna pick because there's so many
I
good ones.
there's so many good ones, and like I love the there's a part of Bad Idea, right, where she literally is just saying blah blah blah, like her mind goes blah. Like that is such smart, amazing writing. Um, but I don't know if I want to do that one. Yeah, let's just drop it. Let's drop it on
Go with
all
your
American.
guts, Phil. Go with your
I go with
guts.
my gut. I'm gonna say All American Bitch then because that's just such an astoundingly good song. So I'm
It
gonna go with.
is.
Oh, I'm gonna drop the record, the needle on the opening track. Jeff, let's play Olivia Rodrigo's "All American Bitch" of 2023's Guts.
That album's phenomenal. That song's awesome. I can't wait. Like she's 2 for 2 in her album, like I said.
Two for two. Two for two. Absolutely.
Yeah. Uh, and makes it's exciting to hear pop music so influenced by the scene music that we kind of grew up
Yeah.
on. It's really come a long way, and it's part of the flavor now. Speaking of stuff we grew up on, where we grew up, there is a band from Stony Brook, Long Island, who came on my radar this year because they put out their first album called "Would
Mm.
You Miss It." Their name is Koyo.
Cool.
Um, they if Long Island post-hardcore emo core had a sound, Koyo plugged right into it, right? Like it is like, oh, this is a band that I can see going from Silent Majority to Movie Life to Taking Back Sunday to Brand New all the way through the years, and Koyo kind of like picking up the baton and running, right?
Okay.
I it's the album is so tight. The songs are awesome. I haven't seen them live yet. I hope to see them live soon. Um, but yeah, Long Island emo core is alive and well. It reminds me of Lifetime. It just has all of those elements. Also, and they have some guest appearances from the elder statesmen of the scene. Both Daryl Palumbo from Glassjaw is on a
Ooh.
song,
Okay.
and Vinny Caruana from Movie Life and I Am the Avalanche is on a song. So they very much are looking back. I imagine they probably are guys in their early to mid 20s, so they were probably like really young when all this stuff was happening.
Yep.
So now they are kind of recreating that here and doing their own thing and making their own sound, their own vibe. So I would love to play, and I love this title of this song. You're on the list, parentheses -1, which is a very feels like a
That's
very
such
2000s emo kind of
yeah,
title.
very, very 2000s emo title. I love it. I'm here for it.
You're on the list -1. Here it is by Koyo.
I'm gonna keep to my new world of embracing emo pop music. I'm actually gonna bring up AJR. There's a band we
Oh,
met
yeah.
that they put out. It's a relatively recent album that just came out. It's called The Maybe Man. Um, this is the most existential emo-y feeling vibe I have felt in a long time on an album. AJR is a very underrated band. I don't think not enough people know about AGR. They're pop music, right? But
Hmm.
they're three brothers who put together. If you appreciate music and how things get put together, like they build songs off. They do a lot of stuff on the computer. They don't. It's only the bassist, the older brother Adam, actually plays the bass. Otherwise, for the most part, it's stuff put together. So it's a little outside my realm. But my son and my wife got me very much into them. I actually think the Maybe Man is probably one of the best albums. I think it's their best album. I think it's the most heartfelt album, and I'm gonna put it on as the on my top 5 albums this year, just because I think it's that good, and I don't care. But if I was gonna play a song, I'd say let's play the Dumb Song by
The
AJR.
the dumb song. All
The
right.
dumb song, the
The
dumb
dumb
song.
song by AJR. Here it is. So I've gone over some of the new kids in the black on my
Yeah.
the Simpsons Mad magazine episode where Bart goes to New York City and sees Mad magazine and he says,
Oh
"I
yeah.
need yeah yeah."
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay. It took me. I was like,
anyway,
what are you?
it's okay.
Now,
It's okay.
now I remember. I remember
The
now.
new kids on the block are done,
Yeah.
and it's time to look. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not all the new kids. I'll say this. I'm gonna say I got a lot of old timers on my list. I hate saying that they're old timers and they're oldie bands, but I guess they are now. And one of them is also not an old timer band, but old timey band. But the act has been around for a bit, and I'll just go with them. Let's do it.
Okay.
Boy Genius put out their first LP this year. It's called The Record because we've been waiting for Boy Genius. They are a super band. They are a super
God.
band of Phoebe Bridgers, uh, Julian Baker, and Lucy Dacus, all brilliant singer songwriters on their own right. In 2018, they're best of friends. They put together an EP of Boy Genius songs. They even played a few shows. They did a little tour with it, and then they all went their separate ways and did new albums since then. And all their albums are phenomenal.
Mm.
And between album cycles, they've returned together. And I feel like they had their biggest year, all three of them. Like they were on SNL. They finished their tour at the Hollywood Bowl on Halloween. They played Coachella, like I mentioned earlier. Part of the reason I went to Coachella was to catch them. Um, the album is phenomenal. It's sad relationships and relationships falling apart or miscommunications between interpersonal. It's beautifully written music. They take advantage of each other's different kind of voices so well. The album opens up with kind of an a cappella song with all three of them, and then throughout the album, each one of the women takes kind of like almost like the lead of different songs. Then there are songs where they all three do equal amounts of work, and I don't know. It's such a rich album. I've been listening to it nonstop all year. Um, I would love to play Not Strong Enough because again, they each kind of get their own chance to shine. But man, when you get to the third time the chorus is sang with, and then Lucy Dacus takes over, it is I don't know. I get goosebumps. It's just it builds so well.
That
So
good, huh? Yeah.
yeah. So this is Not Strong Enough by Boy Genius off their album The Record, which came out March 31st, 2023.
It's funny that you talk about like it's an older thing. So, because I've got a list going of new stuff by older bands, but none of those other couple. I have three others I probably could talk about, but they don't hit what I think is one of the best albums of the year,
Mm.
which I think is made by a band who's older, who put out a new album this year, thankfully, and kind of has changed a little bit. And that is the Gaslight Anthem's History Books.
Hell yeah.
As a fantastic, it's the album I wish they had put out a while ago. And because Brian he talked about jokingly talked about he's put out the quote was like we put out 4.5 albums that we like. And I'm glad they took the time off to go back and then go actually into the studio make a great album. History Books is fantastic. It's up there in the top 5 for me for the year. And if I was gonna have to,
Well, Phil, before you say that, the other thing
yeah.
about this album, which I
Oh,
agree, it's also one of my favorite albums of the year. And I haven't even listened to it a lot yet. Like it's one of those albums that came out, and I'm just my
I
vinyl just arrived, so I'm
yeah,
now like kind of like getting more into it now, and I love it. And what it also is really important because it's the first time Gaslight Anthem
and
gets the boss on a song with them.
finally gets them on together. Yeah, no, it's amazing that they actually finally got together on it. You're right. I think you're right. It is like this little bit of where it takes it's not out of the gate that you don't feel like it's an amazing album. It's so crass to say that, but it was. I was like, but then I listened to it again, and I was like, this is so much. And then I listened to it a third time, like this is so much better than when you think it. And it's great hearing Brian as an older gentleman now. We
Yep.
all kind of sound a bit older. It's like listening to I saw the Movie Life play a couple of years back, and then seeing Vinny up there, and like, all right, well, we all sound a little older now. It's how it is. But it's a great album. It's growing on me every time I listen to it. I'm actually gonna play. I would like to play History Books, the song itself, so we can get Bruce on there as well. It's like a twofer for me.
It's just we have to celebrate when we have Bruce Springsteen on the
I
podcast.
Anytime I can get Bruce on there, I'm going to.
All right. Well, here is History Books off the Gaslight Anthems History Books album that came out this year in 2023. So that, you took the Jersey side on that. You know, Chicago band Fall Out Boy
Yeah.
had one of my favorite albums of the year, so much for parentheses for Stardust. But I'm just gonna say it, Phil. We're covering this album in season two, so I'm
Oh,
not going to talk about it right
spoiler
now.
alert! Yeah,
Yeah,
spoiler
yeah.
alert.
Stay tuned for season two. We are going to do something wild and actually go through a newer album, which we don't normally do.
Don't
But
normally do.
that's a little sneak peek at season two. So they're not the only band of that era who put out an amazing new album. And also, like you said with Gaslight Anthem, like their album for this band came out. I listened to it. I was like, okay, that's what they sound like now. And I kind of like didn't give it another try until
Yeah.
friend of the pod and former guest Nadia texted me and told me, "Are you loving blah 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 blah?" And I said, I listened to it once. I need to listen to it more." She's like, "Keep listening to it. It's gonna grow on you." And she was absolutely right. And I'm talking about Taking Back Sundays 152.
That's
Um,
funny.
I I really love it. It's really again, it feels mature. It just feels like these were the kids who used to like whip, swing the mic around. But they're grown-ups now. And this is a grown-up album for them. But it still has kind of like that feeling of like, I don't know, like the punk, the emo edge of it they've always had. But it's the songs are a little bit more yeah, it's just what I want from an older band. It doesn't have to be the greatest album of all time. Nor should I think bands be aiming for that when they're that been around that long. You should be just
No.
making like what's the best thing you can make now? What speaks to you now? And I feel like that's what this album is. There's a song on it called "Sold," apostrophe old, which I heard Adam talking about it in an interview. Basically, it's kind of in response to getting older and having people expect them to still be 20 years old.
Right.
And it's like, that's not how it works. So I really feel like it's a really important song. And it's great to hear a band who I think has to deal with that kind of like, just play the first album. It's like, no, we have
Right.
a lot of good albums. And we've been growing as a band for decades. And this album is proof of it. So I would love to play Sold. Here is Sold off Taking Back Sunday's 2023 album 152. All right, Phil, I believe this is going to be potentially the penultimate song we play.
This could possibly be the penultimate song. I'm gonna match you with the love for an old band that came back this year without actually putting out. But this time they didn't put out a new album. They put out a new version of an old album.
Oh, interesting.
Of course, I'm talking about Thrice's "Artists in the Ambulance" revisited.
Haha.
I
Yeah.
I can't get enough of Thrice. Just can't. It's just They're that good. And so I remember when this came out, we had talked about the we're all getting older, and you can hear it a bit, in the way the album is produced. And they said, we talked about in the episode that it sounds more how they want it to sound, or what it more like what they thought it could be, which is ironic and amazing to hear, because I'm like, this album is astonishing. I don't know why you would think that, but whatever, if you're going to build upon it. So they went back and they re-recorded everything, and they brought in some additional singers, and that's one of the ones I want to do. I want to do Hoods of Peregrine featuring Brian McTiernan.
One more, one of my favorite albums of the year, Phil. I cannot believe how good this album is. I just didn't think a band who has been around for 30 years, after everything they've been through, to put out the album I've been waiting for them to put out for like 20 years. I'm talking about Blink 182. I'm talking about the album One More Time. Um, it, there's that that phrase people like to throw around, like they understood the assignment. Blink 182 understood the assignment on this. This
Yep.
this is like, the whole name One More Time. It's a reference to the fact this band has broken up multiple times over the
Right.
years. And
Right.
it's really stalled kind of like their progress, I feel like, in a lot of ways. Like, good things have come out of it, don't get me wrong. I mean, I really like the Matt Skiba records. I think they're really fun. Especially California is really, really hooking and fun. I think
I,
I
I
think
like California. Yeah.
I think Nine has some really interesting songs on it. But it never felt like Blink 182,
Mm-mm.
because Blink 182 is Mark, Tom, and Travis.
Right.
So, coming off of what we know from their own history, Mark, after the pandemic, had cancer, which is a you know stage 4. It could have gone really bad.
Yep. Could have gone very bad.
Um,
Very bad very quickly.
but in that, a friendship was fixed with him and Tom, and from what I read in interviews with Tom, like, he wasn't sure if he would ever get back in Blink. And then once that happened, and once he realized, it was almost like he had this moment of like, oh wait, this is our legacy. This is who we are, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna go all in. And the fact that the first track is Anthem Part 3, which is like my dream scenario, would be like a new Blink album start, and it's the best version of the Anthem songs. Like, it's so good, and there's so many great songs on it. There's a song on this album that was actually originally created for Boxcar Racer, for
Really?
Travis and Tom. Yeah.
Huh.
Um, and they actually put it on this album with Mark on it. So it really feels like, to me, they took the last, I don't know, decade and a half of Blink 182 and figured out what the next cohesive step would be for this band. And that's what this album is. But the song I want to play is the title track, One More Time. It's one of their slow songs. I mean, they have classics like the Dave Adams song. They have Stay Together for the Kids. They've done this before, but this one is them talking about themselves and talking about, why has it taken a plane crash. The first time they broke up was
Right.
Travis was in a plane crash. That's how they got back together. Or this time Mark got sick, and that's how they got back together. Why does it take these like tragic situations to bring this band together? Why can't they just be who they are, which is brothers, and this is their legacy? And this song is just, I mean, made me cry the first few times I heard it. Uh,
Well,
so,
maybe, or even yesterday.
or even yesterday, the music video. If you didn't cry from just hearing it, if you're like a lifelong Blink fan like I am,
It was the video for me. No, it was totally the
yeah,
video for me. And seeing all the old videos like reimagined and all that. Yeah, it
yeah, they
was
went they're playing this song, and behind them they're going through all the videos they've done since '99.
right.
And it started with '99 Warped Tour, which is the first time I saw them. So, like, it really felt like,
Mhm.
oh, thank you for this gift. So, uh here is One More Time by Blink 182. Well, Phil, I'm not crying anymore. Are you crying?
Not anymore. No, I've got myself another cup of coffee. I'm okay now. I'll be fine.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you for letting me know.
Flo's crying now, though. Flo's
I
crying.
know, and it's not because of us and our poor
Oh,
tipping, which is nice. That's bad. I'm not gonna say we're poor tippers. We tip very well. That's in this imaginary diner that we have. I have to say this though. This was the year for me. Besides just the bands that came out, I felt I was very late to the party in a couple of times.
Mm,
More than a couple. And I'm gonna real quick. I'm gonna rat off some names that I think you're well aware of a few of these too. Like we've kind of matched up on a couple times, but um, this was the year I like remembered hardcore,
yeah,
melodic hardcore, and like maybe like straight metalcore and even like punk hardcore. So like the first three bands I kind of came back to is Knocked Loose,
yeah.
Pup, and Be Well, Brian McTiernan's band. And those three, I was like, I am gonna like enjoy listening to this kind of melodic hardcore stuff. So I became big fans this year of the Knock Loose, Be Well, and Pup. I also came across bands that are two bands that are kind of on the more on the newer side. One is my buddies of mine on TikTok is At a Time, fantastic little pop punk band. Keep it to like the pop punk realm. Band that's been out since 2013 that I knew nothing about. It's called Knuckle Puck.
Yeah,
I got
really fun.
very fun into them. And new band, literally the new album, their first EP just dropped earlier this year. It's called Origami Angel.
Oh yeah, I know
Yeah,
them. They're really good.
they're really good. And those are, I was late to the party on all these guys. And maybe if I tell you folks at home, you might be, uh, well, later to the party than me. Or you might have been like, Phil, I've been listening to that forever. But anyway, so Knock Loose, Be Well, Pup, Origami Angel, Knuckle Puck, and At a Time.
Awesome. I saw Knuckle Puck at when we were young, and I saw Knock Loose for the first time at Coachella, and it was one
Hey,
of my favorite sets of all Coachella. They were incredible live, and to see a hardcore band kind of like rule
be
Coachella is pretty awesome.
it's really strange to it's I guess it's me going back to my roots and like getting back to like a real hardcore. Ironically, my top five is basically hardcore and then pop albums.
Well, I'll just name off some of my other favorite albums of the year since we're running out of time for our diner time here today. So I mentioned them all the time on the podcast. Gel put out their first album, Only
Mhm.
Constant. This is they like to say they're hardcore for freaks. Um, they they just have it like live. The album is ferocious. It's so good, and it's again, there's a positivity there. It's a collective, and there's something about community as you always bring up in here, and you can feel that there. So I also had this hardcore streak this year. Another band, Initiate, I saw open for Touche Amore earlier this year. They put out an album called Cerebral Circus. Again, another one. Um, again, and also with Gel, Initiate, and even Scow, like what's really cool is I feel like uh, women-fronted hardcore bands is having this great moment where like I feel like 20 years ago it was very rare for that to happen. And now it's like, oh, some of the best ones going. I'm like, this is awesome. It's just I love how the scene has evolved where it really feels more inclusive now than it ever has. Um, Jeff Rosenstock put out Hell Mode this year. Love that album. Sounds amazing. The Menzingers,
Oh
some of it
yeah.
was true. I mean, they slowed it down in this album, but like somehow their lyricism is even more moving and emotional, and they had that nostalgia. They do a lot what the Gaslight Anthem does, but they do kind of like their own sound in a lot of ways.
Yeah, okay.
Love that record. Spanish Love Songs put out an album called No Joy, which is kind of like their thesis. Like they don't sing about happy things. They really look at the world, and
Yeah.
they talk about how bleak things can be. And I'm very happy about this album because one, the production of it, there's a little bit like new waviness to it at times. Like the music sounds fuller. It sounds like they really like pushed the production on it. And also happy because their last album came out, I think, in March 2020, and that was kind of supposed to be their big breakout album, and then they couldn't do anything with it because of the pandemic. So happy they got to put this one out. The National, one of my favorite bands, put out two albums this year.
Two, one, two. Yep.
First two pages of Frankenstein, one of my favorite album titles in a long time.
That's a great title.
Yeah, and then a few months later, they were like, "Oh, by the way, we also have this one," and they put out Laugh Track. So fantastic! They do songs with Bon Iver on one of those on Laugh
Hmm.
Track. They have songs with Phoebe Bridgers on both of them. They have a song with Taylor Swift on their album because Aaron Dessner has become one of Taylor's go-to producers from that band. And my last one, I just want to shout out. This is a two-song split EP uh, of two bands covering each other.
Oh, I
It's
love when the bands do that. That's always
it
fun.
yeah, it's Tiger's Jaw and Joyce Manor.
Hmm.
Um, Tiger's Jaw's cover of Constant Headache, I can't stop listening to it. I'm obsessed with it. So that came out this year as well.
It was like when Alkaline Trio and Hot Water Music did
Yeah.
a little EP of doing each other's thing. So, um, excellent drop. I love all of them.
Oh, and also Paramore early this year put out This Is Why, which is fantastic. And I forget about it because it was so much earlier in the year. But
Well, that was like the Thrice album. I was like, that was February. Like I
yeah,
completely, like kind of forgot it that album had. But I was like, oh yeah, that dropped this year. Um, Jeff, we're gonna go into a series of questions. Because we've had a great year. This is the year the show came out. We've
yeah.
covered a lot of albums this year. We've covered 20, plus a bonus of We Didn't Start the Fire. Jeff, out of the albums we covered, what's your favorite album we've covered? Do you want me to go through the list really quick? Do you need a recap of what we've done? Because
No, I don't, but it's what a tough question.
right, it is I literally have been sitting on this for a while because you
Hmm.
got, I mean, just run, folks know, just quick for refreshing, which allows Jeff time to honestly think about this one because I'm this he had no idea this is coming. We had Good Morning by Alkaline Trio, we had Plans by Death Cab, we had Newfound Glory self-titled, we had My Chem's Black Parade, we had Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. We had Hello Rockview by Less Than Jake. We got Movie Life This Time Next Year. You had Thrice's Artist in the Ambulance. Saves the Day Through Being Cool. The Hold Steady's Boys and Girls in America, or Girls and Boys in America. Um, you had Ocean Avenue by Yellow Card. You had 59 Sound by the Gaslight Anthem. Disintegration by The Cure. We had There's my list. Jack's Mannequin, Life in Transit. You had Thursday's Full Collapse. Take It Back Sundays, Tell All Your Friends. Lifted by Bright Eyes. You had AFI's Black Sails. We also covered Hollows, but I'm not going to do that one. So just Black Sails. You had Counterfeits album, which name completely. It's Super Amusement for Your something excited heart. I can't remember the full title.
You got all the words in there.
I Most of them are there, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we ended the season with "Take Off Your Pants and Jacket" by Blink-182. And out of that, Jeff, I want you to tell me what do you think is your favorite album out of all of that?
Well, Phil, it's the album I'll be seeing next October in Las Vegas when My Chemical Romance plays the Black Parade in its entirety
Yeah,
again for the first time since the Black Parade tour in 2006, 2007.
you are 100% right. That is the best. That is my favorite
Yeah.
album out of all this. I looked at them like they're all amazing,
Yeah.
but that's the one my head kept going back to was a Black Parade, just because it. These are again all amazing albums. Black Parade, you might argue Melancholy, but Black Parade is the one that has left a mark that on the whole scene. Black Mike Hems, that is their mark that's been made. Like that's a pivot time where it things change after that.
Well, Phil, we did that one pretty early on, and I actually think back and I'm like, why did we only play four songs on that album in our episode?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we didn't. I think we were trying to be very conservative on that one. Now you know where this goes, Jeff.
Yes.
What is your least favorite album we have covered on this? I won't say your total skip, but your least favorite album. What's the one you were like, it's my least favorite out of the 20 I just rattled off? Do you need me to rattle off the 20 again to give you plenty of time?
Yeah, I'll say them really fast. No, I
Oh,
don't need to.
okay,
My least favorite of the albums we covered. That's
because
tough. We
we
covered.
covered a lot of good albums: Alkaline Trio, Death Cab, Smashing Pumpkins, The Cure, Thrice, Take It Back Sunday, Movie Alive,
All right.
Counterfeit. I
No,
mean,
I got it. I mean,
okay,
I feel like I'm less familiar with Counterfeit, but I'm not going to put them down because I think that they did a great job what they do.
I think they did a great job with what they did. Yeah, I agree, actually.
I think that the album that I didn't expect us to cover, that we did, and the fact that it's a double album and probably shouldn't be a double album, I'm going to go Melancholy and the Infinite
Yeah,
Sadness.
man, it's a good choice. I didn't think we'd cover Melancholy. No. Jeff is quite aware what my least favorite album is that we covered. And it's Bright Eyes, Lifted by Bright Eyes. It's just that's not my favorite album by the band or what we covered. But I think not a bad album. That's not the one I'm going to go back to all the time.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's okay.
They can't all be 5 stars for you. You know,
No, they can't. They're
they
not
can't
going to
all
be.
be the Black Parade. They
They
can't all
can't. No,
be
they cannot all be the Black Parade. Now, I think what's going to be the hardest question to answer is which one of these do you still think is a sleepy album? People still sleep on.
people to sleep on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
To this day, even after our great episode came out and they all got to listen to the fantastic songs and they heard how we argued that these are really great albums, that people still just kind of sleep on. They're like, nah, I don't, maybe not for me. Because again, we covered like, Less Than Jake and The Hold Steady, Saves the Day, Gaslight Anthem, Take It Back Sunday. I mean,
I mean, it's
Counterfeit.
yeah. I think I'm going back between two in my head right now. I'm gonna have to land on one. I'm going to say because this is because they are choosing to play "Stay What You Are" at
Mm,
uh when we were young next year. To me, makes it feel like they are sleeping on what I think is their best album for being cool.
Through Being Cool is their best album.
It saves the day. No, I shouldn't say that. I do think "Stay What You Are" is also they're both great, but I feel
I,
like maybe "Through Being Cool" gets slept on a little bit more compared to "Stay What You Are."
yeah, yeah, I know what you mean with that. I personally think I think Through Big Cool is her best album. Sorry, I almost burped there, and I had to make sure I didn't. So it's funny looking at this list, and I keep going back to it. It's the album I will always go back to, and every time I listen to it, and I will always say to myself, I even said in the episode, "Why isn't this band bigger?" For me, it's Thursday's Full Collapse. I just will
Mm-hmm.
never understand why Thursday isn't the biggest band in the entire world. They just, they had everything. They have everything, but just, oh, it's not there. People sleep in Full Collapse. I feel like Thursday sometimes gets left out of the conversation where
Like
you
that,
talk
like they get slept on as a band. You feel
as a
like,
band, right? As
yeah.
a band, just because I just do. That's it. Um, all right, folks at home. Let me just get a couple of the things out of the way. Remember, you can follow us on the Tiki Takis. That's what I like to call them. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. We have threads that occasionally get some things on it. Uh, which is funny considering that we like to talk a lot, yet we don't do really much on threads, but that's okay. And then remember, we do have a store that's on TeePublic. Remember, just go to TeePublic, search Millennial Diner Podcast. You will find the great things that executive producer Megan has created for us out of the goodness of her heart. Um, because then she also gets to make some fun looking things, I think, but mostly for the goodness of her heart. We are on YouTube, so if you're listening or watching, hello on YouTube. Remember to like, subscribe, maybe comment, maybe something comes out of it. And then also we are on Spotify. Jeff, how easy is it to have a podcast on Spotify?
Oh, it's so easy. If you want to do like your year-end review for your favorite like cereals you ate or your favorite seltzer water, soda waters you drank, what flavors you want to do a countdown, you could do that on Spotify's podcasting for Spotify. Very simple.
I would love to see one about the soda pop or soda water. I think that'd be kind of a fun one. Count on that again. Thank you, our executive producer Megan, my wife, for all the stuff she does for the show. It is very appreciated. And then my last thank you, because we don't have a guest to thank. So, Jeff, my last thank you is to you. Thank you for doing the show with me for a year.
Oh, no, Phil, thank you.
It,
Uh,
it
it's 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 been wonderful to be able to spend so much more time with you in this year than we've
mm,
had in probably the last 15 years
like
combined.
it's combined. Yeah, no, you're right. No,
But
you're right.
it's been wonderful. I mean, I'm very excited about next season because like we already have some things lined up, and again the same thing. What I love about doing this show is you know we're everybody who's coming on are just they're just fans of this stuff, and they never
Mhm.
and everyone no one gets to sit there and talk for a couple hours about a favorite album. We just don't get to do that. So that's what this is for. We come to the diner for that reason. Um, but Phil, I do have one last request
Oh,
as we close out 2023.
let's close out 2023.
I said we weren't going to play anything off the new Fall Out Boy record because so much for Stardust. because we are going to be covering that next season. But I feel like it's a ripoff to Fall Out Boy to not play something. But even more important, we've hinted at it, or at least I have all year.
All year.
It's time to get a Taylor Swift song on here. So I would like from Taylor's version of Speak Now, which came out in 2023, one of the vault tracks. It's called Electric Touch, featuring Fall Out Boy. I feel like that's the best way to start. Get some Taylor Swift on the pod.
We're gonna start 2024 with Taylor Swift. We can do that, and then I do want to at least put this forward. I think the next album Taylor Swift puts out, her TS should be reminiscent of Twisted Sister.
All right, I'll have her people call your people.
I appreciate that. Make sure to get my number in New Hampshire while I'm in the mountains.
No problem. Taylor will be talking to you. You and who's the singer Twisted Sister?
D. Snyder.
D. Snyder. Yeah, blank. You, D. Snyder, and Taylor are gonna have a sit down and figure this out.
It's gonna be great. All right. Let's play your song.
All right. Here's Electric Touch by Taylor Swift featuring Fall Out Boy. We'll see you next year.